We are a good ways through Season 3 of Disney Speedstorm, so that means it's time to update our tier list. I want to give a big shout out to all of the top players who helped me make this list. They do all of the placing of the racers, I just compile their opinions into one big list. And we now have 31 racers in the game, so let's get into it. Starting things off, because we have so many racers now, I have added an F tier to our list, and what does F stand for? Well, Figment. That's right, everyone's favorite purple dragon is still the worst racer in the game. His stats are all really bad, his abilities not much better, and it does not help that there are still no ways to obtain his shards, his crew member shards, or upgrade him at all, which really sucks because Figment has zero redeeming qualities, which is why he finds his way to the bottom of the F tier. Also in the F tier, we have Hercules for the same reasons as last time. His stats are all just very average, jack of all trades, master of none, which is not good in Disney Speedstorm, and his ability, while it seems good on paper, just doesn't do enough in an actual race to make him any better than F tier. Moving up to the D tier, we have a brand new seasonal racer, Captain Gontu, and I'm sure if you guys have played with Captain Gontu, you saw this coming. He is definitely not a good racer. His acceleration and handling stats specifically are incredibly horrible. I mean, you cannot put enough crew members on this guy to make his handling and acceleration stats any close to usable or viable, and his ability is fine. I mean, it's really cool, it looks amazing, it shoots plasma blobs all over the course, but if you compare this stun ability to something like Steamboat Pete or Stitches, it's just way too overshadowed, and it doesn't do enough in an actual race, unfortunately, which is why Captain Gontu's at the bottom of the D tier. Staying in the D tier, we have Mulan, who honestly feels a lot like Hercules. Her stats are pretty poor, making her just quite a slow racer, and her unique skill is honestly one of the worst ones I have seen in Disney Speedstorm. It doesn't do a lot. Shooting a couple of rockets, especially on a trickster, is just a really bad ability in my opinion, and Mulan definitely needs some buffs. Rounding out the D tier is Mowgli, who just is a really bad racer in my opinion. He is a speedster, but his wolves feel like something that should be on a brawler or trickster. I don't know, definitely not a speedster, and again, his stats aren't doing him any favors, which is why these two racers find themselves in the D tier. Starting things off in the C tier, we have the big cheese himself, Mickey Mouse. Now, there's not a lot to say about Mickey Mouse that I haven't said in the past. He has pretty average stats and is a great starting racer, but unfortunately is held back by his lack of top speed and the fact that his unique skill benefits everyone around him versus other more selfish abilities that will really help you win races on some of the other greater characters in Disney Speedstorm. Following directly behind Mickey Mouse is Goofy, who is slightly better, although his stats still aren't great and his ability is often overshadowed by characters like Buzz Lightyear or Lilo, who essentially do the same thing as Goofy, but they just do it better in every way. And another character in the C tier, we have Beast. Now, Beast does have a lot of potential, which I have talked about in the past, but it's becoming increasingly harder to tap into his potential because of the meta right now that is dominated by racers that can stun so rapidly, which really slows Beast down considering his slow acceleration and how much momentum you need to build up in order to tap into his full potential. Staying in the C tier, we have a brand new racer, Daisy Duck. Now, take this placement with a grain of salt because Daisy Duck has only been out for like a week or two, and so people are still sort of getting a handle on her and how to use her properly. So yeah, just take this placement with a grain of salt, but she is in the C tier because I think she is basically just a worse version of Donald. They have pretty similar stats and their abilities are almost identical, and I think Donald just does it better, mostly because he's a brawler and the ability that they both share doesn't really fit the trickster playstyle that Daisy has as much in my opinion, and that's why Daisy finds herself in the C tier. Now, following behind Daisy, rounding out the C tier is Megara, and Megara has very similar problems to Mickey Mouse and Mowgli, and that is a lack of top speed. Meg has an incredible boost stat and can keep herself boosting the entire race, but that boost doesn't really matter when other racers are zooming by you, and Meg really doesn't have any ways to slow them down. She has very defensive abilities and quite a low top speed stat, which is why she finds herself in the C tier. Kicking things off at the bottom of the B tier, we have Bo Peep, who has gone up considerably since last tier list for a variety of different reasons. For one, you can now earn her upgrade parts in a weekly limited event, which always helps a racer out, and her ability, people have sort of discovered new ways to utilize it in the best way possible. The pretty unique ability where she throws her like stick in front of her and then can reuse it again. It's a pretty strong ability. Not to mention her charged ability is very good in this meta against people like Stitch and Steamboat Pete, who rapidly stun you. Getting that immunity that Bo Peep has with her charge skill is very strong. Woody is also following her in the B tier and is strong for a similar reason. He has the same limited event where you can earn his upgrade parts, and people have learned some cool unique ways to use his lasso, which is honestly a pretty strong ability once you get the hang of it, and you can do some really cool stuff and make some nice plays with it. Also in the B tier, we have another new racer, Minnie Mouse. Just like Daisy, take her placement with a grain of salt. People are still getting the hang of her, but I think Minnie Mouse is actually a pretty solid racer. Her ability is really cool and interesting, and unlike any racer we've ever seen before, in my opinion, I think if we ever get a team mode, Minnie Mouse will definitely be like S tier in that mode, just because the ability to give everyone on the field shields and a boost is a really cool one, and I think that Minnie, her stats are solid. She seems like a pretty solid racer. Only time will tell where her placement actually ends up being, but for now, I think the middle of the B tier is a pretty solid place for her. Following Minnie Mouse is Shang, who I think is really good in this meta. I know I keep mentioning Steamboat Pete and Stitch, but if you guys go into multiplayer races this season, you will feel it. You just get stunned left and right, and Shang is really actually pretty great at countering that. He is constantly getting shields, and his unique skill can keep him immune for an extremely long period of time, which is very, very good against the current top matches of racers. And following directly past Shang is Lilo, who has a similar advantage that Shang has. She is a new seasonal racer, and honestly, I think I overrated her at the start of the season. She isn't amazing, but her surfboard ability, being able to stun people behind her just like Steamboat Mickey and stay immune for quite some time, is pretty strong. If she had the ability to steer on her surfboard, I think it would be a lot better, because oftentimes a good racer can outpace Lilo just because her surfboard is honestly kind of slow. It feels a lot like Goofy's ability, although it is slightly better than Goofy's, it's just not amazing. Another racer that finds himself in the B tier is Captain Jack Sparrow. Now, I don't have much to say about this captain. He is just the solid definition of good, he's a good racer. He does everything pretty well. He can keep his boost for quite a long time because he is a trickster. His ability is solid, being able to stun everyone around him. I just don't have a lot to say. He's a solid racer. Moving on to Celia May, next in the B tier. Celia May is very similar to Jack Sparrow. She's just good at everything, though her ability is slightly better, and she is a defender, which gives her that little edge over Jack. Being able to keep that shield up, and her speed boost ability or her slow down ability, they're both very, very solid. Rounding out the B tier is none other than Belle. Now, Belle has lost some of her meta presence because her stun ability is just not nearly as good as Jessie or Stitch's or Steamboat Pete's. Her furniture is nice, it's a decent obstacle, but it just really doesn't compare to Jessie. Her birds are a decent ability, and she still has really solid stats and is definitely a viable racer. Belle, she's good. She's still one of my favorite racers in the game for definitely a good reason. If you want to invest in Belle, I say go for it. You really can't go wrong with her. Kicking things off in the A tier, we have quite a shocker for me. It's Jumba. Yeah, Jumba found his way into the A tier. I'm honestly pretty surprised, and his stats, they are not good, but if you slap enough crew members with handling onto Jumba, he can become a pretty solid racer stat-wise, but where Jumba really shines is his normal activation ability, which is essentially a blue shell stunning whoever is in first place, and this ability should not be underestimated at all. It is absolutely incredible in 1v1s, which are a lot of the top-ranked multiplayer races, and even if you're not in a 1v1, just a Jumba being in your lobby changes how the game of Disney Speedstorm is played. You have to constantly be aware if you're in first place and have defensive abilities at the ready. It really makes everyone a lot more cautious, and I really like how Jumba has sort of changed the atmosphere of the game, even if it's just a little bit. Following Jumba is another racer that surprised me, moving up a ton. It's Donald Duck. Now Donald Duck, his shield ability is making him a lot better in this meta because of, again, all of the stuns, and his handling and acceleration is just unmatched. He's so good, and people have started to level up their Mickey and Friends crew members and get more shards for them, which means they can add more top speed to Donald Duck, which he desperately needs, and throwing that little bit of extra top speed on him is enough to push Donald Duck all the way up into the A tier. A very, very solid racer indeed. Right after Donald, we have Baloo. Now, Baloo is slightly worse from the last tier list I made, and that is simply because of the new map, which it doesn't really benefit heavyweight brawlers such as Baloo, and again, Baloo's acceleration isn't amazing, and in this stun-heavy meta, it really makes him struggle a little bit. But Baloo's skill cap is not to be underestimated. If you find this bear in the right hands, he can absolutely be devastating and take the race by storm, using his pumpkins to quickly soar into first place and keep it without anyone to stop him, although Jumba does kind of slow him down a little bit, but he's still good. Baloo is still a very solid racer and a great choice, especially if you're good with him. Following Baloo is another racer that takes a lot of skill to utilize properly, and that is Randall. Randall can be absolutely devastating if you find him in the right hands. Between his ability and the tech that is possible with his doors, Randall can become absolutely devastating, and his purple boost when you fill up his Scream canister is really, really strong, and again, it can make him soar into first place with little to keep him in check, which is really amazing that these two racers with high skill caps are able to be this strong in this pretty stun-heavy meta. Finding herself in the A tier, we have our second to last Lilo and Stitch racer. It is Angel. Now, Angel is a very, very good racer making her debut this season. People quickly found out how to utilize her charged boost skill and her normal activation to just honestly control the racetrack in a really unique and cool way, being able to make herself immune and slow down everyone else around her, or use her boost ability and just rapidly boost over and over again, basically like you have a repeating dash power-up, is really strong, and Angel is such a cool and fun racer, not to mention her stat pool is honestly just pretty incredible. Right after Angel, we have another racer making their debut on the tier list this season. Even though they've been out for quite a while, I made my tier list a little too early last season. It's Steamboat Mickey. Steamboat Mickey, he's a very solid racer, an epic racer. He has good stats and a really, really strong and quite obnoxious ability, I'm not gonna lie. His charged activation can stun everyone behind him for miles, and it's extremely annoying trying to overtake a Steamboat Mickey. If he gets into first place, it's like pretty much impossible to pass him if you don't have a cloak or defensive ability, just because of how easily he can control the racetrack. Right after Steamboat Mickey is his partner in crime, the one who I have mentioned so many times throughout this video. It's Steamboat Pete. You guys know Steamboat Pete. He stuns everyone with his charged ability, covering the racetrack in ink, racking up so many stuns, and his high top speed and brawler playstyle really leans into this. It's really easy to stun a bunch of people, get to his max speed, and just run away with the lead, sending ink behind you occasionally, and making the track a nightmare to race on. Similarly to Steamboat Pete, finding herself at the top of the A tier, it's Jessie. You guys know Jessie. She has an insane stat pool and an incredibly obnoxious ability that makes the track even more of a nightmare to race on than Steamboat Pete. She has incredible control, and being a brawler can stun even more people than Pete can. It's really amazing just how incredible her potential is. And all of her stats, nothing to shake a stick at. She is one of the best stat pools in the game, which is why she finds herself at the top of the A tier. Kicking things off in the S tier, the number 5 racer in Disney Speedstorm right now, it is Elizabeth Swan. Now, Elizabeth Swan is really amazing because she's kind of like the counter meta. She's really good against everything else that is good right now. The ability to cloak over and over again, she basically can't be stunned for the entirety of the race, and her solid stat pool just makes her a really good racer. Being able to have a decent top speed stat and not get stunned at all is a really great thing that not many racers can do, which is why she finds herself in the S tier. Not to mention her unique skill is really strong, being able to block off where people can drive. You can cut off critical shortcuts and things like that, which makes Elizabeth just a great racer and definitely deserves her spot in the S tier. Just missing the podium in 4th place, we have James P. Sullivan. Now, Sully is still a really good racer. The only reason he's going down a spot or two is because, one, the new Kauai racetrack does not make itself very easy for Sully to drive on, considering his low handling stat, and also getting stunned a lot by Stitch can really weigh down on Sully's performance, just because his acceleration is not as great as it needs to be to face off against Stitch. But that is not to say that Sully is a bad racer. He is still incredibly amazing. His unique skill is pretty much unparalleled by only like 2 other racers in the game. It's so strong, getting so much boost and such a high top speed stat. Sully is a beast. Getting himself the bronze medal, it is our final Lilo and Stitch racer, none other than Stitch himself. Now, Stitch has proven himself to be an absolute menace on the racetrack. He can stun so many people with his charged ability. If you have played any races this season, you know what I'm talking about. Stitch is everywhere, stunning everybody, and his stats are really good. Plus, all of his incredibly high level crew members that you can get if you just play through the Lilo and Stitch season tour. It's really easy to do, and it makes Stitch a beast. He is just such a good racer. I'm honestly pretty scared of what's going to happen once people start getting Stitch up into like level 40 like they do with Mike Wazowski. He's going to be an absolute beast when that happens. Coming in at 2nd place, we have our green man himself, Mike Wazowski. Now, Mike Wazowski absolutely ran rampant through the game in Season 1, and he is still incredibly amazing. Being able to teleport forward through his doors is an ability that's always going to be super strong in a racing game, and I think Mike Wazowski will continue to be one of the top racers for years to come if they don't nerf his doors at all. Not to mention his acceleration, and all of his stats are really good, which is incredibly important in a meta where you can get stunned a lot and his doors can get broken. Even without his doors, he's still strong because of his incredibly high stat pool. Taking the gold podium, our number 1 racer in Season 3 of Disney Speedstorm, it's Buzz Lightyear. Now, Buzz has all of the tools he needs to thrive in this meta of stun-heavy racers. For starters, one of the most important things is he is a defender, meaning he can get his shields a ton, protecting himself from those deadly stuns that can happen from Stitch, Sully, Steamboat Pete, Jessie, Belle, you know, the list goes on. There's so many stun-heavy racers, and Buzz getting those shields so often is really key in this meta for keeping him alive. And on top of that, even more important than his shields, he has his charged rocket ability. This charged rocket ability is insane, guys, and now with people leveling up the alien crew members and getting Buzz to 5 stars, it's such a strong ability at a high level, boosting you forward. Buzz can take 1st place so easily and then maintain 1st place because of his shield ability. Now, there's definitely an argument for any 5 of our S tier racers taking the number 1 slot, but I truly think that Buzz does deserve it just because of how strong he is in this meta and how great his ability and him being a defender is against Stitch and some of our other top racers. So yeah, I think Buzz definitely deserves the 1st place spot. Now, that is my definitive tier list for Season 3 of Disney Speedstorm. Let me know what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. I'm curious to know, so tell me in the comments below. And I want to give another huge shout out to all the top players who helped me and made this list possible. It means a lot, and be sure to go follow their socials in the description below. They're all amazing Disney Speedstorm players, so definitely give them a follow just for that reason alone. But that's all I have for you guys today. I do want to apologize that this list took a little bit longer than I wanted. I was trying out different systems of collecting data for the list, and you know, it just got a little confusing, but I'm going to improve it a lot next season, I promise, and try and get this list out a lot earlier. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing. It means a lot, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.